Dog culture teaches our kids learned helplessness, narcissism, poor coping skills, and it preys on the innocence of our little kids. Shout out to K9 Official for this little gem called Body Language. Tells the truth. Kids are naturally afraid of dogs. Yes, it tells the truth. We can find this example everywhere. In this video, these two young kids are pulling their legs up because a dog is running around in the living room floor. A dog is about to do this to a kid, and these little kids are scared. In the beginning of this video, the little boy right here does a flying leap onto the couch, and then he spins around because there's a dog running around. See the body language of those kids pulling their legs up, clutching their stuff harder, getting relief by staring at their phones. That's the body language of kids around dogs. So these kids have not learned to be deceptive yet. Most adults in our society are very deceptive. Toddlers' brains are wired for truth. So they're just telling you the truth. When they act like that, they're telling you the truth. Mom and Dad, I don't want this dog up in my face. Mom, Dad, I need some peace and quiet. It's the truth. It's just like the video I showed you earlier, the truth. So I'm going to highlight another little part of this. Their little brains aren't capable of fabricating lies. So we're teaching our kids to fabricate lies. Just pretend like you're not afraid of the dog. Just pretend like it doesn't matter. We're teaching our kids learned helplessness, narcissism. We're teaching them all kinds of bad habits. We're telling everybody that we just need to make these kids cope with dogs. We're not saying the dogs need to cope with kids. We're not putting the kids first. We're telling the kids to put aside their humanity so we as adults can go be deceptive. Go on social media, get our likes, get our little fakey likes, and our kids are paying the price for this. An example of how these adults are constantly treating dogs is Kyle Dyer. If you watch this video, she is constantly.
You too. You too. Thank goodness for you. Gosh, have a great weekend.
Just petting on the dog. Petting on the dog. Like, that is not necessary. You don't need to do that. And the whole reason she's doing that live on the air is because she wants to look like she's one of these dog lover people. She is being deceptive. However much she thinks that dog is great, there is no need to be stroking up on the dog. I'll put this video in the description, but she ends up getting bitten, and many other adults get bitten while they're stroking on dogs. But they'll still sit there and say, "Oh, I'm a dog lover. It wasn't the dog's fault. It was my fault." Well, you were being deceptive, sitting there and stroking up on that dog on live TV to make yourself look like you're part of the dog culture. That's very deceptive, and that's what we're teaching our kids. We're teaching them to be deceptive people. This is another example of what I'm talking about. This is a video about a family that gets themselves one of these pit bull terriers, and the little kid does not like the dog. And they do this whole video talking about how the kid needs to act differently with the dog. Don't hit the dog, they say to the little kid. But they don't understand, or they don't care, that the parents, these two adults, are the ones that put that kid with the dog. Look at the look on this kid's face. In this video, they bring in a man in a dog suit and try to teach this kid how he needs to act around dogs. This is not a look of discovery. This is not a look of, I'm anxious to go learn about new things in life. This is a look of, something happened to me bad with this dog, and I'm not really interested in being here. The look on this kid's face tells you everything you need to know about the ridiculousness of putting kids with dogs. So it's that little kid. How is he going to defend himself? The parents refuse to do it. You can't put your hands on the dog, yet parents are constantly stroking on their dogs, pushing their dogs away. Yeah, what happens if the kid forgets? You're making this kid run around and put aside his humanity. That dog is constantly running up in that kid's face, knocking that kid down. And you're going to tell that kid to do what? Put his hands in his pockets and tuck his head between his legs and hide? It's ridiculous. If there's a reason for that kid to hit the dog, then they need to separate the kid and the dog.
And And sometimes, you know, you need to have rules. We are never, ever going to hit Dakota again, okay?
How about Dakota never, ever, ever comes running up and interrupts those kids when they're with their mom? The dog is crazy, undisciplined dog. All throughout this video, they try to get it to do things and it refuses. Yet they're telling these kids they need to adjust their behavior for the dog. Even the dad who is 5 times the weight of his little kids, he can barely control this rambunctious dog. And you're going to say those kids can't utilize their hands to defend themselves from the dog? Forcing them to be dishonest? Forcing them to put aside their human instincts? So what happened to I can't put my hands on the dog? All throughout this video, they have to use their hands to control where this dog goes, to put him in the tube. Everywhere this dog runs around, these people have to constantly put their hands on him. The dog is constantly pulling the mom and dad. They're constantly having some kind of crazy chaos. And what do they have to do? They have to grab the dogs with the hands. But then you're going to tell that little kid who is going to be out here playing in this yard, this rambunctious dog is going to be jumping on top of that kid. And you're going to tell the kid not to put the hands on the dog? They're working hard on the dog's impulse control as they stand in the living room and throw treats to the dog. The dog sees the woman's hands, and the dog is... Sorry about that. There's the dog. There's the dog. It sees the woman's hands and expects a treat. What happens when our little kid is cruising along through this living room with his milk or his apple in his hand? That dog is going to think that it needs to eat that out of the child's hand. So they're working on impulse control by rewarding the dog for being impulsive. And then they're going to put that kid in the living room. He's going to be sitting on the couch, having his little bag of snacks, eating his carrots or Cheetos or whatever. And that dog is going to think that it needs to have the food from them. So this is just preying on the innocence of little children, and it's pretty ridiculous. And the fact that our society is adopting this indoctrination everywhere. Everywhere we look, any dog organization, any rescue shelter, they have hundreds and hundreds of little things about how you can make your kid pretend to not be afraid of dogs. Teach your kid learned helplessness and pretend to not be afraid of dogs. These kids are just being honest, people. Kids don't know the facts about everything, but they do have instincts and they do have built-in honesty. And I think we need to give the honesty of these kids a voice. I think we need to give the honesty of these kids a voice, and we'll have less of this. Less kids being mauled, less adults that have been brainwashed by their dog-loving parents being mauled as adults. So there it is. Are you going to believe the propaganda? Or are you going to take the honesty of your little kids and allow that honesty to have a voice in our society?